Hello, my fellow Barsoomians. Synthetic Men of Mars. First published in magazine form in 1939, published as a book in 1940, is number 9 in Edgar Rice Burroughs' Barsoom series. His novels all taking place on sort of a science fiction, fantasy, swashbuckling, sword fighting, airship flying version of Mars. Now, the first book started off with John Carter of Virginia, a Civil War veteran who had been transported to Mars. We've had various different protagonists throughout the thing, being like, his son, Catharsis. We've had Ulysses Paxton, most recently, a veteran of the First World War who had been basically killed in a big explosion there, but somehow was transported to Mars because he was a big fan of the Barsoom series. Indeed, it's like he says, "Oh, I've read your stories in the magazines, and now I'm sending you my story from Mars." This one, yeah, opens like most of the other ones with a kind of a quaint little frame story at the beginning of this is how we've got this manuscript. We're going to explain this science fiction fantasy that actually it's real. This is how we came in this is how we got the manuscript. Skipping through all that, we find out that our protagonist, the one who we are following, is Vordaj, who is a kind of humble warrior who is in John Carter's employee. And indeed, at the beginning, it seems like this is oddly, we're following John Carter's story because Deja Thorist has been in an airship accident and she is beyond the help of all the surgeons that John Carter can lay his hands on to actually help restore her to health. Like basically they said, nope, she's going to die. There's no way to save her. But he remembers that, there is one guy who is the great surgeon of Mars, and that is Raz Thavas, the mastermind of Mars, which we met in earlier things, where Raz Thavas was a morally flexible scientist, conducting all sorts of horrific experiments, having perfected the idea of kind of transplanting brains from one body to another, and just sort of using that as a way to fund his projects by letting wealthy, aged Martians get their brains, transferring their brains. And indeed, he gets his own brain transferred. He trains up Ulysses Paxton to transfer his own brain into the brain of another Martian. Now, John Carter doesn't want that. He just wants him for his surgical skills. But he's missing. He basically had to make himself scarce after the events of Mastermind of Mars. So John Carter's decided he's got to find him because Raz Thavas is the premier mad scientist on this planet and will be the one to be able to help Deja Thoris. So at the beginning of the book, you're kind of wondering, why are we following Vordaj on his this adventure? It's almost like you've got Jimmy Olsen as the main guy versus Superman, who's over here doing stuff. Maybe it's almost that kind of a power differential, even though Vordaj does prove himself to be an able swordsman and adventurer on his own. And yes, spoiler, they do find out where Raz Thavas is. He is on the city of kind of a dead city of Morbus in the Tunolian marshes, which are just basically this horrific area, which is surrounded by marshes. It's got horrible creatures and beasts in it. There's savage tribes. There's pirates. It's a super dangerous area, but that is where Raz Thavas is, and they track him down. And it turns out that Raz Thavas, he had relocated to this area because this is where he can do his scientific research and stuff like that. But one of his science projects has gotten away on him. He has created these men, synthetic men, the Hormads, who were like, he is able to create life. He creates life, but he's not able to control it very well. There are these huge vats which he grows the human men in using kind of synthetic human meats, this synthetic meat to grow men, but he can't control the process, in which case his best case scenario is he makes horribly kind of malformed, like, they'll have like one small eye, they'll be down here, one big eye will be up here, one giant ear, one small ear. Their arms and legs will be different sizes, and those are the successes. Half the time they have to basically butcher the abominations that come out of the vats, and just basically chop them up and put them into the incinerator or back into the growth vats, because they're so malformed, or they just have no brain, like they basically are complete morons. But unfortunately for Ras Thavas, the most intelligent of these Hormads realize, hey, wait a minute, we're going to take control. They take control and force Ras Thavas to start building a giant army of Hormads, for their goal is world domination. Awesome, great thing to happen in a pulp fiction story. And indeed, that's what they have. And they have 7 Hormads who have been transferred into captured red Martian bodies, who rule this area. Kind of an uneasy alliance. They all want to be in command. And they have they've also got Ras Thavas making these Malagor giant birds, which were thought to be extinct, but Ras Thavas has managed to kind of restore the breed. And their plan is that they'll fly out in them, capture cities, get airships, and go on to do great destruction. Now, in the course of this, they want to escape. They want to escape with Ras Thavas, get him back to Dejah Thoris for this adventure. Vordaj, of course, because you have to have the love story in a Edgar Rice Burroughs novel. This is the one thing I've definitely learned through the Barsoom novels. He falls in love with Janai of Janai of Amhor, this beautiful young woman who really he only exchanges a few words with, but has fallen in love with her. But she has been taken when they get captured by the Hormads. She gets taken to another part because though the Hormads themselves are kind of sexless beings, once they get transferred into red Martian men bodies, they get those red men Martian body urges, and want, beautiful maidens. And she is a beautiful maiden, so they're now fighting over who's going to get her. And he is desperate to get to her, at which point he has Ras Thavas transfer his body into one of the Hormads, a Tor Durbar, which Tor Durbar apparently in Martian is basically a number, and it's like 1,554,000. I can't remember what the exact number is, but yeah, it's just a number. But he gets transferred into this body so he can get transferred, and he gets to know Janai. But of course, because it is Edgar Rice Burroughs, the guy's like, well, I don't know, I can't tell her that I am actually the handsome Vordaj inside this hideous Hormad's body. That description of like one giant eye, one small eye, giant head, long arms. That's basically what Tor Durbar looks like, and he is humongous and super strong. But he can't let Janai know that this is I'm actually Vordaj, because he thinks, oh, she will never be able to love me if she knows that I was inside of this horrible beast, and of course, so throughout the whole rest of the novel, he can't tell her that that's who he actually is, even though, maybe she gives some good indicators that, you have a really noble soul for a Hormad, and you shouldn't do yourself down. Maybe you should get a good body. It's like, there's all these kind of indicators, because like she's hardly ever actually known Vordaj, other than he's a handsome slice of red Martian meat himself. So, that is kind of a funny thing. There is actually a good bit of this, which you have that kind of, body dysmorphia of Vordaj has periods where he's like, oh my God, am I turning from Vordaj inside of Tor Durbar to becoming Tor Durbar, a Hormad? It's like, am I losing my identity to a certain degree? This is a pulp novel, so it's mostly, action. But, so it's action over that. And just that anxiety over, of course, at some point, he misplaces his original body, which makes for some more anxiety, more adventure, but also just that idea of like, oh God, I've literally lost myself. I've lost my body, which is that's the kind of fun literalization that I'm looking for in my pulp stuff, of like that kind of that stuff about body being there. There's also a sort of a thing of a male viewpoint of like, well, females are so shallow that if I look hideous, well, then they couldn't love me, which, to Edgar Rice Burroughs credit, he doesn't buy into. It's more actually Vordage's shallowness, which gets highlighted in this novel. There's some parts of it you can tell that this was written back in the day. We've got the Ghoulians that at one point that Vordage meets in his Hormad body, but they are this kind of prideful tribe, primitive tribe living in the forest, and they're saying like, look at our amazing civilization, you must obviously want to steal everything from us. And he's like, you're living in grass huts and your giant treasure is shells. Why? What's going on? You guys are either so cloistered that you have no clue, or maybe they're braggarts and cowards, which might be the case. Which Edgar Rice Burroughs is trying to make a larger point about civilizations in general, but it also does come off as, oh, look at this ignorant tribe, even though he's kind of using an ignorant primitive tribe to say, oh, look, I'm talking about the bigger tribes and civilizations of the world. There's also like Edgar Rice Burroughs always has these great horror elements, and I mean, I think the Hormads themselves do kind of come across well as a kind of an interesting horror element. But within that, this kind of Frankensteinian thing of creation of life by Raz Thavis, there is a vat that goes wrong and starts growing out of control, and it kind of gives you the sense of it's the kind of horror of like The Thing, or more recently, I think Slither, of just sort of something that's just growing uncontrollably and could just consume the entire world if left to its own devices. And it's like it's world destroying, which is great. So yeah, I mean, this is a fun adventure, as always, with Edgar Rice Burroughs. It also continues to have those themes of like the dying planet, which seems to be something that's not unique just to Edgar Rice Burroughs. The idea of Mars as the dying planet, as sort of something that is sort of maybe seen as a warning to the Earth, and that can be kind of just ecological. We have the thing of like this fantasy Mars is slowly losing its water. And at one point, John Carter and Vordage have a conversation where it's like, they look at this world now, and John Carter thinks of like, hey, the Pacific, someday might be just this tiny, drying up of, all the water on Earth might evaporate one day, and this might be what we turn into. There's also kind of the things of, this is a world where it's about night. It's basically, it's a very kind of gallant knights honor and kind of all this stuff. And you can see that maybe someone like Edgar Rice Burroughs is saying like, look at this noble world where men are men and women are women, and we're going to save the women, is sort of maybe a comment, is a bit of a retro comment on, oh, we're losing that in our own world. He is somebody. Edgar Rice Burroughs was born in like, I think, 1875, so he's seen the two world wars, which is basically kind of destroyed that myth of a hero like John Carter. Even though it's so much fun to, even nowadays, it is fun, something fun to go back to. You want the hero in a story, but that kind of idea of a hero definitely you see kind of died on the idea of someone can like save the day, maybe died with the mass slaughters of World War I and World War II, and that sort of thing. So it's that interesting theme of like, we're using this fantasy Mars to kind of project our own fears and our own desires and our own like, oh, we'd like to escape into this kind of world, but we're also kind of saying, oh, this is a dying world. We're losing this. There's that elegiac kind of feel to it, as well as just kind of silly adventures and riding giant birds through the world. Yeah, that's my review of Synthetic Men of Mars, number 9 in the Barsoom series. I'm going to continue on. This is my year of my little contribution to Marsathon, a aborted readathon. So yeah, next I am going to read Lana of Gothal, published in Amazing Stories in 1941 and as a book in 1948. It's the last Barsoom installment that was actually published in Edgar Rice Burroughs' lifetime. I don't know if I'm going to go on to anything after that. There's one more, John Carter of Mars, which has got a story that's apparently by his son, and then has got has got like kind of one short story which was going to be a part of like basically another sequence of stories like Lana of Gothal, but there's only one of them and it kind of ends on a cliffhanger. So I don't know if I'm going to read that, but I will definitely, yes, next month read Lana of Gothal. More videos later.